There's a stage in a man's emotional journey that most women never see, and missing it can completely change how a relationship feels. Men often feel attraction first, excitement second, and love last. But because that attraction can look confident, decisive, even intense, it's easy to assume he's already emotionally grounded. He's not. For many men, love doesn't arrive in a rush, it arrives quietly. It shows up after consistency, after shared experiences, after he feels accepted rather than tested. While women often grow emotionally attached before certainty, men move towards certainty after emotional safety. This is where confusion happens. A woman may pull back when she thinks the peak has passed, not realizing the most important phase is just beginning. When you understand this reverse process, you stop chasing reassurance and start allowing connection to deepen naturally. One of the most misunderstood dynamics in dating is that men often feel attraction before they feel love, which is the reverse of how many women experience emotional connection. For many women, emotional safety and trust come first, and attraction deepens as those feelings grow. For men, however, attraction is frequently the entry point, not the destination. This attraction can be strong, focused, and convincing, which is why it's so easy to mistake it for love. But attraction alone is not emotional attachment. It's simply the spark that opens the door. When a man is attracted, his feelings are often driven by chemistry, novelty, and desire. This stage is exciting and fast-moving. He may pursue enthusiastically, communicate often, and show clear interest. From the outside, it looks like certainty, yet internally, he may still be emotionally undecided. He hasn't yet processed whether this connection fits into his life long-term, whether he feels safe being vulnerable, or whether he trusts the emotional environment of the relationship. Attraction pulls him closer, but it doesn't anchor him. This is where many women unknowingly misread the situation, because the intensity is high early on. It feels logical to assume that emotional commitment is already present. When that early intensity naturally stabilizes, it can feel like something is fading or going wrong. In reality, for a man, this is often the transition point where love has the opportunity to grow. As the excitement settles, he begins to assess how he feels when things are calm, consistent, and real. This quieter phase is not a loss of interest, it's an evaluation of emotional safety. Love for men is frequently built through experiences over time. It forms when he feels appreciated rather than pressured, accepted rather than judged, and trusted rather than constantly questioned. Emotional attachment grows when he sees that he can show up imperfectly and still be valued. Unlike attraction, which is instant, love requires repetition. It requires seeing that the connection is stable even without constant highs. Understanding this reverse process is powerful because it changes how a woman responds. Instead of chasing the initial spark or panicking when it softens, she can recognize that the most meaningful stage may be beginning. This awareness allows space instead of urgency, confidence instead of anxiety. When attraction is allowed to evolve into trust and trust into emotional closeness, love has room to form naturally. The key insight is simple but profound. Attraction may open the door, but love walks in slowly. In the early stages of connection, a man's interest can feel powerful, focused, and emotionally charged, yet it is often still unanchored. This is where many women become confused, because intensity is commonly mistaken for emotional depth. A man may text frequently, make bold plans, express strong attraction, and seem fully invested. But internally, he may still be operating from excitement rather than attachment. This doesn't mean his interest isn't genuine. It means it hasn't yet settled into something rooted and stable. Early male interest is fueled by curiosity, chemistry, and the thrill of possibility. It's the rush of discovering someone new and imagining what could be. During this phase, emotions are high, but they are also fragile. They depend heavily on momentum, novelty, and how things feel in the moment. Because this energy is so visible, it can give the impression that the relationship is already emotionally secure. In reality, this stage is more like a test drive than a commitment. He's engaged, but he hasn't yet decided whether this connection belongs in the long-term structure of his life. What often goes unnoticed is that men usually need time and consistency to emotionally anchor their feelings. As the relationship moves forward, the initial excitement naturally calms down. Communication may become less constant, and the energy may feel less urgent. Many women interpret this shift as a loss of interest, when it's actually a moment of emotional assessment. He's beginning to ask deeper, quieter questions. Do I feel at ease here? Can I be myself? Is this connection peaceful or draining? Do I feel trusted or do I feel under pressure to perform? This is a critical phase because it determines whether attraction turns into attachment. If a man feels rushed, monitored, or emotionally tested during this stage, he may pull back, not because he doesn't care, but because the connection no longer feels safe to explore at his pace. On the other hand, when he experiences consistency without pressure and warmth without expectation, his interest starts to root itself emotionally. He begins to feel bonded, not just to how she looks or how exciting the connection feels, but to how he feels when he's with her. Understanding that early intensity is not the same as emotional security helps women stay grounded. Instead of trying to preserve the initial rush, they can focus on creating an environment where emotional grounding can happen. This doesn't mean being passive or distant. It means allowing the relationship to breathe. When a man's interest is given room to settle, it has the chance to grow deeper, steadier, and far more meaningful than the initial spark ever could be. One of the most common reasons women feel confused or disappointed in dating is because early male excitement is often mistaken for emotional certainty. When a man shows strong interest at the beginning, it can feel reassuring, even validating. His attention feels intentional, his attraction feels clear, and his presence feels consistent. From a woman's perspective, this looks like emotional clarity. It seems logical to believe that if someone is this invested early on, they must already know how they feel. But emotional certainty doesn't arrive for men at the same time it appears on the surface. Initial excitement is driven by feeling, not decision. A man may genuinely enjoy a woman, feel drawn to her, and want to spend time with her, all without having decided what the connection means long term. This is where the misunderstanding happens. Women often assume that early enthusiasm equals commitment, while men see it as exploration. When the emotional energy later shifts, it can feel like the ground has been pulled away. What once felt secure suddenly feels uncertain, even though the internal process for him has simply changed phase. This misinterpretation creates a pattern where women begin to question themselves. They may wonder what they did wrong, why the energy feels different, or whether they've lost their value in his eyes. In reality, the shift is not about loss, but about depth. Early excitement is loud and expressive, emotional bonding is quiet and internal. When a man moves from attraction into evaluation, he becomes more reflective. He's paying attention to how the relationship functions, not just how it feels. Unfortunately, because this stage is less visible, it's often misunderstood as disinterest. When a woman believes emotional certainty should be immediate and consistent, she may respond to this shift with anxiety or pressure. She might seek reassurance, push for clarity, or try to recreate the intensity of the early days. While understandable, these responses can interrupt the very process that leads to commitment. Emotional certainty for men grows when they feel trusted to arrive at it, not rush toward it. The deeper issue isn't that women expect too much, it's that they're responding to a timeline they don't realize is different. When emotional certainty doesn't appear on schedule, it feels like a warning sign. But in many cases, it's simply the stage where love is being quietly decided, not loudly expressed. Recognizing this allows women to stay grounded, confident, and present rather than reactive. When expectations align with reality, dating becomes less emotionally exhausting. Instead of reading every change as a threat, women can see it as part of a natural progression. Emotional certainty doesn't always announce itself early. Sometimes it forms slowly in the background, while both people are simply being themselves. For many men, love is not something that happens simply because attraction exists or chemistry is strong. Love develops when he feels emotionally safe, genuinely appreciated, and free to be himself without fear of losing connection. This is a stage that often goes unnoticed because it doesn't look dramatic or intense on the surface, yet it is one of the most important phases in emotional bonding. While attraction is sparked by excitement, love is built through emotional permission. Emotional permission means a man feels allowed to open up at his own pace. It means he doesn't feel judged for his doubts, pressured for certainty, or measured by constant emotional tests. When a man senses that his value in the relationship is tied to always showing up perfectly, always being confident, or always being emotionally strong, he subconsciously holds back. Love cannot grow in an environment where vulnerability feels risky. Instead, it grows where imperfection is met with understanding rather than criticism. Appreciation plays a powerful role in this process. Many men emotionally attach when they feel seen for who they are, not just for what they provide. Feeling appreciated doesn't mean constant praise. It means feeling respected, trusted, and acknowledged. When his efforts are noticed without being demanded, he starts to associate the relationship with emotional ease. Over time, that ease becomes safety, and safety becomes attachment. Trust is another quiet but essential ingredient. Men often fall in love not when they feel needed, but when they feel chosen. When a woman trusts his intentions, gives space for consistency to develop, and doesn't try to control the outcome, he feels emotionally free rather than trapped. This freedom doesn't push him away, it draws him closer. It allows him to invest emotionally because he isn't fighting an invisible expectation. What's often overlooked is that emotional bonding for men is cumulative. It's built through repeated experiences of feeling accepted, understood, and valued over time. Each moment where he can relax emotionally strengthens the connection. Unlike attraction, which can fade quickly if overstimulated, emotional attachment deepens with stability. When women understand that love grows from emotional safety rather than intensity, they stop trying to accelerate the process. They stop interpreting quiet consistency as boredom or lack of passion. Instead, they recognize it as the foundation of something real. Love for men is not ignited by pressure or urgency. It emerges naturally when the relationship becomes a place where he feels emotionally at home. Understanding the reversed emotional timeline in men changes everything about how a woman experiences dating and relationships. When this awareness is missing, it's easy to overinvest too early, misread normal emotional shifts as rejection, or chase reassurance at the very moment patience would be most powerful. But when a woman understands that attraction often comes first for men and love develops later, her behavior naturally becomes calmer, more confident, and more self-respecting. Instead of reacting to every change in energy, she begins to observe. She no longer assumes that early excitement guarantees emotional certainty, nor does she panic when that excitement softens. This grounded perspective prevents emotional overextension. Rather than giving more, proving more, or trying harder when uncertainty appears, she stays centered in her own emotional stability. This is not emotional distance, it's emotional maturity. Clarity replaces anxiety. When a woman understands the process, she stops personalizing pauses or quiet moments. She recognizes that space is often where a man processes his feelings, not where interest disappears. As a result, she doesn't rush conversations for reassurance or push for labels before emotional grounding has had time to form. This allows the connection to unfold organically, instead of becoming strained by premature expectations. This understanding also protects a woman's self-worth. When she no longer relies on early validation as proof of long-term interest, she remains emotionally whole, regardless of outcomes. She doesn't abandon her standard, DS, or boundaries to maintain momentum. Instead, she shows up consistently as herself, which is the very environment where emotional attachment can grow naturally. Confidence becomes quiet rather than performative. Most importantly, this awareness helps women respond rather than react. They become less driven by fear of loss and more guided by emotional intelligence. They know that love cannot be forced or fast-tracked without compromising its depth. By allowing a man the emotional space to arrive at love in his own time, she also gives herself the gift of peace. When both people are free to move through their emotional stages without pressure, connection becomes authentic. Understanding this reverse timeline doesn't just improve relationships, it transforms how women feel within them. Instead of chasing certainty, they create the conditions where it can genuinely exist.